Hi, this is Denise from Denise in Wonderland, a magical journey of faith through Christ. Today, we will sink deeper into God's Word and His truth. We have to chase the presence of God, and we can do so through His Word. Let's get started. Job 6. Then Job answered, "Oh, that my anguish were weighed, and all my calamity laid in the balances. For now it will be heavier than the sand of the seas. Therefore my words have been rash. For the arrows of the Almighty are within me. My spirit drinks up their poison. The terrors of God set themselves in array against me. Does the wild donkey bray when he has grass? Or does the ox low over his fodder? Can that which has no flavor be eaten without salt? Or is there any taste in the white of an egg? My soul refuses to touch them. They are as loathsome food to me. Oh, that I might have my request, that God would grant the thing that I long for. Even that it would please God to crush me, that he would let loose his hand and cut me off. Let it still be my consolation. Yes, let me exult in pain that doesn't spare, that I have not denied the words of the Holy One. What is my strength that I should wait? What is my end that I should be patient? Is my strength the strength of stones, or is my flesh of bronze? Isn't it that I have no help in me, that wisdom is driven away from me? To him who is ready to faint, kindness should be shown from his friend, even to him who forsakes the fear of the Almighty. My brothers have dealt deceitfully as a brook, as the channel of brooks that pass away, which are black by reason of the ice, in which the snow hides itself. In the dry season they vanish. When it is hot, they are consumed out of their place. The caravans that travel beside them turn away. They go up into the waste and perish. The caravans of Tema looked, the companies of Sheba waited for them. Yet they were distressed because they were confident. They came there and were confounded. For now you are nothing. You see a terror and are afraid. Did I say, give to me, or offer a present for me from your substance, or deliver me from the adversary's hand, or redeem me from the hand of the oppressors? Teach me, and I will hold your peace. Cause me to understand my error. How forcible are words of uprightness! But your reproof, what does it reprove? Do you intend reprove words, since the speeches of one who's desperate are as wind? Yes, you would even cast lots for the fatherless, and make merchandise of your friend. Now, therefore, be pleased to look at me, for surely I will not lie to your face. Please return. Let there be no injustice. Yes, return again. My cause is righteous. Is there injustice on my tongue? Can't my taste discern mischievous things? Job 7. Isn't a man forced to labor on earth? Aren't his days like the days of a hired hand? As a servant who earnestly desires the shadow, as a hireling who looks for his wages. So I am made to possess months of misery. Wearisome nights are appointed to me. When I lie down, I say, when will I arise and the night be gone? I toss and turn until the dawning of the day. My flesh is clothed with worms and clods of dust. My skin closes up and breaks out afresh. My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle and are spent without hope. Oh, remember that my life is a breath. My eye will no more see good. The eye of him who sees me will see me no more. Your eyes will be on me, but I will not be. As the cloud is consumed and vanishes away, so he who goes down to Sheol will come up no more. He will return no more to his house, neither will his place know him any more. Therefore I will not keep silent. I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. Am I a sea or a sea monster that you put guard over me? When I say my bed will comfort me, my couch will ease my complaint, then you scare me with dreams and terrify me through visions, so that my soul chooses strangling, death rather than my bones. I loathe my life. I don't want to live forever. Leave me alone, for my days are but a breath. What is man that you should magnify him, that you should set your mind on him, that you should visit him every morning and test every moment? How long will you not look away from me, nor leave me alone until I swallow down my spittle? If I have sinned, what do I do to you, you watcher of men? Why have you set me as a mark for you, so that I am a burden to myself? Why do you pardon? Why do you not pardon my disobedience and take away my iniquity? For now will I lie down in the dust. You will seek me diligently, but I will not be. Okay, let's go ahead and recap. I've realized that these when I discuss Job, we're going a little bit longer, only because there's so much poetry in this. This is a form of wisdom literature. And so I just want to make sure there's some things in there. If you're not sure what they are, I kind of want to break down what some of the metaphors are so you can understand what Job is saying. Because there are some things even I had to look up where I was like, I don't understand the significance of this. So, and that's one thing too, when you're reading the word of God, don't be afraid if you're like, what does this city mean? Like, why are they mentioning these cities? Look it up. There are some great sites out there like Bible Gateway, Bible Hub. Also, I would encourage you just get a book as well. You can get a Bible dictionary or a well, not a concordance, but I would probably say like a Bible dictionary, or get a commentary for whatever book you're reading. If you get confused and you're like, I don't know what I just read, that really helps you interact with the Bible, and you can be blessed that much more by understanding what some of these things are. All right, so we're going to start Job 6. Remember, yesterday we covered Job 3 through 5. That was Eliphaz's, there was a lot of focus on Eliphaz's speech, the Temanite friend. And remember, much of what he said was correct. About how God judges, and some tragedies do result from sinful behavior, and God also rewards those who do good, and he also watches out for the unfortunate. So there was a lot of stuff that Eliphaz said that was indeed correct. However, there was a lot of it that did not apply to Job, or was not what I would consider appropriate considering how Job felt in that moment. It was not a correct approach to a friend who's entertaining the idea of dying and wishing for death. There was just some things that shouldn't have been said, and we discussed a little bit of that last time. We're going to discuss a little bit more about that again today when we analyze Job's response. But remember, this was a trial. And the destruction in Job's life was not a response to him being evil. Remember, he sacrificed on his children's behalf. He was the spiritual leader for his household, for his sons' families, because they were married as well. So now we're going to see how Job responds now, because we expect, based off of Eliphaz's conversation with him last time, Job should be confused, even more confused than before. And hey, we're going to see Job start to question God now, and he is defensive now, especially towards his friends. All right, so Job 6, we start in verse 2. In verse 2, where he talks about his anguish weighed, calamity laid in the balances. This pain is real for Job. It is all consuming. And the fact that he keeps saying this and verbalizing this to the friends, he really wants to be heard. Like, I want you guys to understand where I'm at mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. This is not the Job of the time before. This is a different man. So he keeps verbalizing this pain. In verse 4, he says, "For the arrows of the Almighty are within me. My spirit drinks up their poison. The terrors of God set themselves in array against me." When he talks about the arrows of the Almighty are within me, he's basically now saying to his friends, he believes God has now targeted him. And frankly, Eliphaz has helped develop that type of thinking. So he believes that God has just targeted him, And now he just wants to completely destroy him from the inside out. Because you see, he says, my spirit drinks up their poison, referring to the arrows that he believes God has aimed at him. When it says the terrors of God set themselves in array against me, he's saying that God has surrounded him almost like an army. Like, he can't win. If God has decided now to just attack Job endlessly, I mean, what hope is there? So he definitely acknowledges the power of God. But what's so interesting is um, he's talking about the terrors of God set themselves in array against me. And again, this is a reference to him kind of being surrounded like an army. But remember, we know that there was a hedge placed around Job to protect him, and that God only lowered it temporarily. He did not lower it permanently, temporarily. So Satan, not God, could attack and take advantage of it, because this was a trial. That's why God was permitting this to happen. But again, the hedge was always meant to go back up, and God's not the one that attacked him in this moment. Of course, you can say, well, if God let Satan do it, maybe he did. But no, God did not really attack him. We saw what happened. We got to see behind the scenes in heaven. So God really did lower that hedge, because even Satan said, hey, I can't even do anything to him. You've got a hedge around him. So again, this was only temporary. And remember, God tied the hands of Satan. There was quite a few things. He's like, you can only do this, but you cannot do that. And remember, one of the things he said is, hey, you're not going to kill this man. So just forget it. Okay, so let's go to verses 5 and 6. We got a little bit of a metaphor here. Does the wild donkey bray when he has grass? Or does the ox low over his fodder? Can that which has no flavor be eaten without salt? Or is there any taste in the white of an egg? Oh, and then let's go to verse 7. My soul refuses to touch them. They are as loathsome food to me. Okay, he's comparing this. He said, does the wild donkey bray? That's the wild animal when he has his grass, which is his food. And he says, or does the ox? Now, the ox symbolizes the calm, orderly. So he's symbolizing kind of both types of people. He's like, no matter what, both animals are satisfied when they can at least eat. Like, that's one of the few things you need. You're like, if I can just get some half decent food, it doesn't have to be the best, but just a little bit. He's like, hey, we're satisfied. We can be a little still. And so remember, in our previous chapters we covered in Job, remember we talked about how Job, he voiced how he was unable to eat. And he said the only nourishment he was receiving was his grief, and how it was pouring out of him like water. So we kind of see this kind of come back again. And he's basically saying, by saying, can that which has no flavor be eaten without salt? He's like, his grief and pain is making everything bland. And that is the way grief is for us as well, where you don't want to have anything to do with anything. Think about one of the things that you do when someone, like at a church, if someone loses someone, one of the first things we do is what? We set up, a good church, we usually set up some kind of way of getting food to the grieving. Isn't that interesting? We always make sure that they have some decent food, and we're not just giving them any food. We always usually try to give them like the best food possible. And because at the very least, let's fill them. And this is really important, because we've got Job here mentioning about twice now about how he can't eat. And this speaks to kind of what's happening to the inside of him. If you can't eat, you're going to have less energy, which is going to make him more susceptible to probably having a hard time overcoming whatever illness he has, as well as making him more susceptible to, frankly, falling into this emotional spiral. So what goes into a person, not just spiritually, but even physically, matters when you're grieving, because you need something to go inside of you to bolster you, to strengthen you. And so now we see there are multiple dimensions to a human being. We've got to be fed spiritually and physically. Both matter, especially during grief. Now, fasting, we'll talk about fasting later on in the Bible. That has its purpose too, but not here in this grief. And in this moment, Job needs something. And he's like, look, if I can't even get spiritually fed, can I be at least physically fed? He can't, I mean, he's not getting anything. All right, let's move on from that. Okay, and you probably hear me sliding papers around, so excuse me. Then we've got verses 8 through 9. Oh, that I might have my request, that God would grant the thing that I long for, even that it would please God to crush me, that he would let loose his hand and cut me off. Again, he's basically saying, God, finish me off. Hey, it's obviously you've brought me to the point of death, God. So let's just finish it. Kill me now. This is the language, again, we've heard Job say this before. He's cycling through these different feelings and different things he's asking for. God, see, he doesn't really know what he wants. It's not clear because so this is what we're going to continually see with Job. Then we've got in verse 10, let it still be my consolation. Yes, let me exult in pain that does not spare, that I have not denied the words of the Holy One. Again, this is a small reference to the fact that Job did not do anything. He's like, I never denied the words of the Holy One. I never opposed God. So he does feel a little good because he's like, well, I'm pretty certain that I never did anything against God. So at the very least, I know I didn't do anything to him. Verses 11 through 13. What is my strength that I should wait? What is my end that I should be patient? Is my strength the strength of stones, or is my flesh of bronze? Isn't it that I have no help in me, that wisdom is driven away from me? When he asks, is my strength the strength of stones, or is my flesh of bronze? He's like, look, I'm only human. I can't live like this. Like, I have a small amount of energy, spiritually and physically, and he's basically, his tank is empty. He's on fumes right now. So he's like, I'm not made of bronze. I'm not made of stones. So he's like, I need something. He's like, I've got to have something. He said, I won't last, basically saying, I won't last much longer like this. So then we've got verse 13 also too, where it implies that wisdom is driven away from me. See, for him, he's like, there's nothing, like there's no kind of wisdom. There's nothing that can console him right now. Like, so solace seems very elusive for him. Then we got verse 14, where he kind of shifts to responding to and criticizing Eliphaz. So in verse 14, it says, to him who is ready to faint, kindness should be shown from his friend, even to him who forsakes the fear of the Almighty. So he's saying, hey, even if a friend defied God and the friend was found at fault, don't you think you should console and practice kindness when this friend is at the point that I am? Like when you've got a friend wishing for death, don't you think that you should do a little bit better? So that's what we're seeing right here. And I must admit that Job does have a point. And then we've got in verse 15, my brothers have dealt deceitfully as a brook, as the channel of brooks that pass away. Referring to brothers, he's referring to the friends. So these are supposed to be close friends, but not just any friend. They're like brothers. So there's an expectation of receiving some kind of support during grief, not a dressing down. You're not expecting that they're going to criticize you and make you feel worse. There's an expectation that there are friends, what I consider friends are people like coworkers or people, that acquaintances, strangers. You don't expect them to necessarily be those dependable people, but there's certain people that are close family or friends that are just as close family who you expect that when things get rough, they will be there for you. And he's saying that he's just not seeing that from his friends. So then we've got verse 17 when it says, in the dry season they vanish. This is referring to the brooks, the water, which is supposed to be symbolize the friends. And so he's saying when times are bad, these friends, they just cease to exist. Like they're not friends anymore. And that's why it says in the dry season they vanish. When it is hot, they're consumed out of their place. He's like, things get hot, they're gone. He said there are no friends. So that's where we got there. Then we're going to go ahead. I actually really like this part of it. I'm going to read verse 19 and 20. The caravans of Tema looked. The companies of Sheba waited for them. They were distressed because they were confident. They came there and were confounded. So let me explain. So Tema and Sheba are cities. And Tema was a popular trade route for like Northwest Arabia. That's what I looked up. And Sheba's in Southwest Arabia. And I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it. So basically what Job wants you to imagine, because it says the caravans of Tema looked, the companies of Sheba waited for them. Now, if you want to know what are the caravans of Tema looking for, they're looking for those brooks of water. So Job wants you to imagine if you're traveling in a desert, because that's what this is. This is a desert. There's no Walmart. There's no Target. There's no convenience store. It's a desert. There's nothing there. So you're traveling in these deserts, these popular routes, and travel is very difficult. However, once you become aware and you realize that there are consistent locations, there's a location where you know there is always a brook. Year after year after year after year, there are brooks of water. You make sure that you chart a path to these reliable water sources. You won't go any other path. And you know that you will always make it to your destination because you know that at the midpoint, because you've charted this particular path, there is a brook of water that is always there. So it is reliable. So again, these water sources are almost supposed to represent reliable, godly friends that are like brothers. So imagine suddenly during one of these treks, again, you've been there thousands of times before. One day, the brook is just gone. The water is gone. The travelers would die because they wouldn't expect that the water's gone. And this would become a critical time for them because their reliable well, their water sources have dried up. So he's like, I just want you to imagine like how dangerous that would be to travel and know that you have a reliable source of water that's always there that just suddenly just dries up for you. It can kill you if you're in the desert. And grief kind of puts you in the middle of a desert. But you know, where there's a water source, there's a reliable friend. There's that godly friend that you know, hey, I can just tell him or her, I need you to pray for me. The last thing you want, again, is a dressing down. So that I really like this part because this really explains for us as those who may grieve and as for those who need to support those in grief, how critical it is to still shower people with some kind of comfort and with the word of God in a way that uplifts them and doesn't tear them down because it's not a time for discipline. Okay. So now we're going to go to verses 22 and 23. Did I say, give it to me or offer a present for me from your substance or deliver me from the adversary's hand or redeem me from the hand of the oppressors? So basically he's saying, hey, I didn't even ask you guys for much, referring to his friends. He's like, kindness is not going to cost you anything because he didn't ask them to go to battle with him. That's why he says, did I say, deliver me from the adversary's hand or redeem me from the hand of the oppressors? He's like, I'm not asking you to be a Moses. I'm not asking you to do. He said, I'm not even asking you for money. He said, or to give me any kind of gift. So why can't you support me right now? Then we've got verse 24. Teach me and I will hold my peace. Cause me to understand my error. So again, he's trying to give his friends an opportunity. He says, hey, tell me what I did first and I'll be quiet. And he really means this. He's like, if there's something I'm missing, tell me and I'll be quiet. Then we got verse 25. How forcible are words of uprightness, but your reproof, what does it reprove? So again, Eliphaz's words were painful. Verse 26. Do you intend to reprove words, since the speeches of one who is desperate are as wind? And so they're saying that, so again, Job is trying to really express, hey, you guys are not really considering my words. Like, I think you guys are just not taking me seriously in what I'm saying, my feelings, because they're not really addressing his feelings. And that means a lot. I mean, that's a legitimate feeling. Like, hey, I want someone to listen. I want someone to at least acknowledge my pain and not just give me a Bible lesson. Let me just tell you a Bible lesson. I mean, how would someone feel? You lose someone really close to you, and someone's like, well, let's just talk about the sin of so and so, and we're like, okay, that's not helpful in this moment. And again, I believe in the Word of God, and I do believe in discipline, but we're talking about grief here, and so that's why this is such a great book for both sides, so that way we can better understand how to help people that are grieving. And also we, as those who grieve, can see how we can start to err as well. All right, we've got verse 27. Yes, you would even cast lots for the fatherless and make merchandise of your friend. Okay, so back in ancient times, if someone owed money, they would cast lots over the property and children in front of the person. And they would sell them, whatever property or children, to pay off the debt. And this system, as you can imagine, could be horrific even for someone who truly owes money. But also, this would definitely be tragic for someone who's considered blameless. So he's basically accusing Eliphaz of taking advantage of his situation and his vulnerability to criticize him and speak in ways to, he's sharing his vision. He's saying he's saying me. We talked about that last time. So he's like, you're taking advantage of me at this point. Like, what? He's basically questioning the motives of them, because he's like, this is not what you do. All right, verses 29 through 30. He again is saying, hey, I'm telling you, I want you to recognize that I'm telling the truth. Believe me. And he's like, can you find any kind of deception in me? Am I lying? So again, he's trying to, he's experiencing grief, but he's also now trying to defend his character right now, his previous character. All right, so we're going to transition to Job 7. We've got Job now starting to lament again, but this is more so shifting towards God. And so in the first few verses, he talks about someone who's working, a hired hand. And basically he's saying, hey, I did all this work being righteous, being the leader of a household, only to be rewarded basically with this low pay and little rest, much like the worker who slaves away and who does not get fairly compensated. And then we've got verses 3 through 4, where he's saying, so I'm made to possess months of misery. Wearisome nights are appointed to me. When I lie down, I say, when will I arise and the night be gone? I toss and turn until the dawning of the day. So, time of sleep should give us some kind of rest. It's like, look, if I'm grieving, at least if I can get some sleep, I can forget for those 6 to 8 hours about what's going on. But he's like, I'm not even getting that. He's like, I'm tossing and turning. And then we see in verse 5 when he says, my flesh is clothed with worms and clods of dust. My skin closes up and breaks out afresh. He's like, I can't even lay down. He said, I've got these nasty boils from my illness that are opening up and becoming even more disgusting as I sleep. So you can just see the picture of this. You're like, this man is tormented physically and spiritually. So then we're going to jump down to verse 8. The eye of him who sees me will see me no more. Your eyes will be on me, but I will not be. So here we go. Job is shifting again. He's now telling God, hey, if you look for me, I will be gone. I'll be dead. So you can see, remember before he was like, God, kill me now. But now he's like, but God, God, hey, if you look for me, I'm going to be gone. I thought he didn't want God to look at him. He talked about that in one of our earlier chapters. But see, we're starting to see what Job wants. He wants a response from God, and he's not getting it. So it's almost like he's using different tactics in his pain to try to lash out to get God to respond. So that's one of the things we need to think about when we're in pain, that sometimes we may start using tactics that frankly aren't spiritual ones to try to solicit God. So you remember the first few things that Job did before he started to sin himself was, remember, he prayed. He praised the Lord. If he had continued doing that, he probably would have eventually got a response. And think about it. And he will get a response eventually later. And this is difficult because, some of us have experienced this where, you question God. You're like, why? Why did you do this? And then you're saying other things and then you're crying to God, help me. And it's like, and then you're accusing him the next second. So this is a natural thing that can happen to people when you're grieving. Okay, so now we're going to jump down to verse 12. Am I a sea or a sea monster that you put a guard over me? So Job is basically accusing God again of targeting him. He's like, what am I, a monster that you've got it in for me, that you're trying to eliminate me, restrain me because I'm like this horrible being on earth? And then verse 13 through 15, he's talking about his sleep again. He's like, hey, even when I can finally get some sleep with all these sores and everything, he said, then I'm tormented in my dreams. So this is why he thinks that God has it in for him. He's like, I'm being attacked when I'm awake and when I'm asleep. So what is there? And then verse 16, we see him basically say that he loathes his life. He's like, I hate my life. And he's like, I just want it finished. I want it done. But then he says, leave me alone. For my days are but a breath. But what's interesting is he does not want God to leave him alone. He does want to hear from God. So we see again a way of him going back and forth between different things, sometimes not saying what he means, sometimes saying what he means. And this is what happens in grief as well. Then we've got verse 20. We're almost done. Where he says, if I have sinned, what do I do to you, you watcher of men? So he's saying, God, tell me what I did. And remember, he also said the same to his friends as well in the last chapter in Job 6. And he said, why do you basically saying, why do you target me? Because he says, why have you set me as a mark for you so that I am a burden to myself? He's like, why did you target me? Like, what's the reasons for this? And then in verse 21, when he says, why do you not pardon my disobedience and take away my iniquity? He's basically saying, okay, God, let's say I did sin against you. Why haven't you forgiven me? I mean, remember, he was praying so many times shortly after everything happened. So in Job's mind, he's like, okay, I kept praying to you. I was praising you. I even, rebuked my wife. And that was after I lost my kids. I lost everything else. And then I'm praying to you. So he expects, even if he has sinned before, why didn't God forgive him? Because then after that, we know what happens. Satan goes back and then he's afflicted. His health is ruined. So he's wondering what's going on here. But then again, we end Job 7 with, for now will I lie down in the dust. You will seek me diligently, but I will not be. So again, he's saying, God, if you look for me, I'm going to be gone. I'm leaving. And so again, he just wants a response. See, he's not getting the response he wants from his friends. And He needs God. But right now he's directionless because we just see him going all over the place. And he needs direction. So I would say, because we're finished for today, when you're comforting someone that's grieving, try to provide them direction. That's what they need. They really need direction. And one of the ways that you can do that is by, you don't have to share, like I said, a Bible study, but just share just the pure principle of God comforts. Find scriptures about how God consoles and God will comfort them in their pain. Psalms are really great for this. Use those opportunities to help them lean more heavily into God, but acknowledge their pain, acknowledge what they're going through, because they just want someone to hear them. But so hear them, listen to them, support them, uplift them. When people are in pain in this world, we have to respect that. But we also need to use that as an opportunity to try to apply the Band-Aid or the balm of God. And we have to try to softly and smoothly lay it on them, so that way they can see that God is there to help them. And if some of their pain is a result of their sin, you need to deal with the pain first. And hopefully as they deal with the pain and they start to lean deeper into Christ and what he does for them, that then once they're out of some of that pain, maybe they can begin to address the ways that they have been disobeying God, which has resulted in the things that have happened. So I just want you to be encouraged today. And if you're grieving as well, again, lean on God. Always, always, always express to God how you feel. There will be times you're probably going to say some things that sound a little crazy, like Job. As much as I would love to say, as a person who's experienced grief myself, you love to be able to say, oh yeah, I was wonderful in my prayer and I never said anything not so nice. But sometimes I try, you try really hard to be that perfect Christian in prayer, but there are no perfect Christians. But the thing is to be consistent and to keep, at the end of the day, maybe starting or, ending your prayer with praise, or saying, God, I know I need to praise you in this prayer, but I can't right now. Help me praise you, because right now I just can't do it. So just use this time as we read through Job to just reflect on how God can help you if you are experiencing grief. And also use this time too to think of some things that you may need to change in how you deal with people that are grieving. Are you an Eliphaz? If you are, stop it. Just stop it right now. Or are you someone that just you're not Eliphaz, but you're like that Brooke, where it's like, you're like, oh, I don't want to talk to you. You've got a really good friend who seeks you out and you just like, you don't know what to do with grief. So pray above all, to transform you and to enlighten you, so that way you can learn the different lessons from these books. So I hope you have a blessed day and continue reading the Word of God. And again, if you fall behind, you can always catch up, because God is very gracious to you, and it's going to be okay. Bye.